everyone, Anthony Scott here of ToyHypeUSA.com. Today we are reviewing the 16th subscription box to FanHome's Iron Man offering. This includes issues 59, 60, 61, and 62, and Assembly Guide number 5. Each of these magazines come with parts to continue the build, and the Assembly Guide comes with parts of the base to also continue the build. Big shout out and thank you to FanHome for sending along for a review. Greatly appreciate it. To subscribe, check out the link right in the YouTube description or on ToyHypeUSA.com. It's a hyperlink. Here's a closer look at the cover for issue number 59 with the Model Prime armor and the parts that we're going to be using for assembly. Keep in mind these parts have been used on the other leg, so we're going to be using them again. All right, so inside this issue, we have Legacy of Doom, Knights in Shining Armor. Great article here with some great images. We have a continuation. And about halfway through, we have the step-by-step instructions to continue the build. Here's everything in that bag. 2 parts here and some screws. And here's a look at assembly, placing that in as shown, screwing it in the back, and that's final assembly. So this is basically straightforward. Here's an exploded view, which really helps if you're having a problem, and a 3D model view as well on the right side. Next article, Out of Control, Who's in Charge? And we have a continuation here. And the final article, Model Prime Armor, an all-proposed tool. Here's a look at the back featuring Iron Man Legacy of Doom number 1 from June 2008, as well as a description and a look at the next issue. All right, so I'm going to work on this build and let's take a closer look. Assembly is now complete. What you're going to be doing is putting the inner circuit board for the calf inside the inner support for the calf. So this piece with the circuit goes inside this other part, and you're going to screw it in with the 2 screws that are included. And we are now moving on to the next issue. Up next is issue 60, and here's a look at the parts we're going to be using to continue on for the build. Inside this issue is a special movie issue, as it says right there on the cover. And first article about Captain America Civil War. And we have a continuation of that. Great movie, by the way. Highly recommend you guys see it. And a continuation. And halfway through, we have a look at the steps. You'll notice that these parts are not included in the bag. These parts here on the right are parts that we've previously assembled. So make sure all of this is handy. Here's a look at the parts in the baggie over here. And for assembly, I'm going to be assembling this as shown. Keep in mind we've done this once before, so you guys should be able to remember what we've done. And you can assemble this as shown. All right, next page, add an exploded view. Now we're going to be screwing in what we did in the last issue. And there's a final look. So make sure to take your time when assembling. There's a lot of little steps here. And this is what it's going to look like when it's done. The exploded view helps greatly. Highly recommend you guys look at that as you're building. Here's another exploded view. So, next article, Civil War. Whose side are you on? This is from the comics. Highly recommend you guys read this as well. I think the comic was actually better than the film. A lot more characters involved in the comic. It's a great read, by the way, in this issue. And here's a look at the back. Inside, a Civil War Volume 1, Number 1, from July 2006. And we have a look at the next issue. So I'm going to assemble this, and let's take a closer look. Here's a look at completed assembly. So once it's assembled, it's going to look like this. All these parts are attached as shown. You can see where this is attached up here. Just make sure to follow the instructions carefully once again. And on the back, see how these parts are connected. These just snap into place. As shown, these aren't screwed in or glued. So there's your look. And I am now moving on to the next issue. Up next is issue 61, and here's the parts that are included. The parts are very small in this one. This is going to be a very quick assembly. Here's your closer look. There are 3 tiny parts as shown. Starting things off, the first article, In Freefall, Tony Stark, Fugitive. A continuation. And here's your look at the parts and assembly. Here's a closer look at the 3 parts. This is where they're going to go. And here's a look at assembly. So this will go to the lower portion of the leg. I just showed you guys the upper portion, which is up here. This is the lower portion. And final assembly. So make sure to really take your time as you're assembling. Here's an exploded view, which would help greatly. These just snap into place, so there's no glue or screws that you need to use in this step. And next article, Riri Williams and Iron Heart. A continuation. And convertible armor at full throttle. So on the back, we have Invincible Iron Man Volume 1, Number 8 from February 2009. And to look at the next issue, I'm going to assemble this, and let's take a closer look. Here's a look at completed assembly. You'll notice that these 3 parts are connected. The long one goes right in between here, and the 2 smaller ones are fitted right inside. And I am now moving on to the next issue. The final issue before we get to the assembly guide is issue number 62. And here's a look at the parts we're going to be using for assembly. Inside this issue is Anti-Squirrel Girl. And first article, Rescue, More Than Just a Substitute. A continuation. And about halfway through, we have a look at the parts and assembly we're going to be using for this issue. It's a closer look at the parts and the screws and everything. And step by step, instructions are right here. Make sure to take your time. And here's the exploded view. Again, this helps greatly. And this is where it's going to go. It's going to connect to the back of the leg. Next article, Ultron. Datapus in adamantium. A continuation. And the final article, Anti-Squirrel Girl, Metal and Nuts. And on the back, we have The Invincible Iron Man, Volume 1, Number 19 from December 2007. And a look at the next issue. I am going to assemble this, and let's take a closer look. Here's a look at the completed assembly. Once attached, this piece will be able to move as shown, so you'll still be able to see the interior details here. And this part has two different movements, 1 and 2. That just snaps right back into place. And as you can see, it fits in perfectly. Screw these in right here on the sides, as shown. So I am now moving on to the assembly guide. Here's a look at assembly guide number 5 and the parts for the assembly. Assembly guide number 5 is going to be the same assembly that we've previously done the past couple of issues. What you're going to do is put the light panel on the outer frame and then attach the outer frame to the base using the screws that are included. So this is where it's going to go. Make sure everything lines up. You'll notice that this part here is facing you. Screw it all in, and there's a look at the final assembly. So I'm going to assemble this right now, and let's take a closer look. Here's a look at the completed assembly. All 3 of the outer frames are now attached. We are halfway done. And just to show you guys the bottom, so you see where it's lined up. This one where my hand is on right now is the one we just installed. So overall, this is coming along nicely. A lot of detail in this. They've done a fantastic job creating this build, so highly recommend you guys subscribe. Check out the description in YouTube for the link right there, or the hyperlinks off of ToyHypeUSA.com. Thanks again to FanHome for sending along for a review. We greatly appreciate that. I am Anthony Scott. Thanks for watching this video, and stay tuned for more reviews.